Hey guys, did you know that I have a Patreon where you can support me and plus get awesome rewards? Or if you're thinking to yourself, but Julian, I want even more bang for my buck while still supporting you, you can pop over to my Redbubble and check out my awesome store with new designs appearing regularly. But for now, enjoy the video you're about to watch. Hello, it's me, Julian Greystoke. Today I'm wearing my strong female character shirt, which is covered in cat hair because anytime the cats see me wearing a black shirt, they're like, now is our time to strike. Today we are going to talk about a book called Bird Box, which is a thriller that I read recently that I had seen a few booktubers talking about, and I was like, that sounds interesting, let's get in on that. Bird Box stars a woman named Mallory, and she and her sister find themselves basically facing the end of the world. There is something out there in the world causing people to become violent and kill others and then themselves. And it spreads very, very rapidly. And people soon figure out that whatever it is, you can't look at it or you will go crazy and murder-suicide your way through the town. So Mallory bands together with a few other survivors, and they live in a house where everything is boarded up and you can't see outside, and if you go outside you must go blindfolded, and things just kind of go from there. For some of this story, Mallory is pregnant, and for other parts of this story, she does have 2 children under her care, and so this is an interesting story in that it is the story of a mother trying to survive in the apocalypse, which is a pretty unusual one. You don't hear that one too often. Now, I am going to be talking some spoilers because I would like to discuss some things that I either liked or gave me problems with Bird Box. So if you don't want any spoilers, you should go. There are a lot of spoiler-free reviews of this book for you to check out if that's up your alley, but we are going to get into some of the nitty-gritty and talk about some details of this book. Alright? Everybody who doesn't want spoilers is gone? Okay, let's get talking. So one of the very first things that intrigued me about this book is the sort of unreliable narrator situation we have going on. See, now I'm having a total brain fart and I can't remember if this book was told in first person or third person. I'm like 99% sure it was told in first person, but now I can't remember for sure. So I'm gonna guess it was in first person, but it was definitely in present tense. And if it wasn't third person, it was third person limited, so you really only get like the point of view of the character you are with at that time. It might as well have been in first person if it wasn't. Anyway, because of this, we never really know what is going on, and that's the biggest spoiler of them all. This book doesn't ever tell you what's really going on. And so you have what the character thinks is going on, but they are blindfolded, so they are guessing about everything. And that was a really interesting element of the book, in that you never knew if they were actually hearing what they thought they were hearing, whether they were hearing something else and interpreting it wrong, whether it was all an auditory hallucination, because those are actually very common. The biggest problem with this for me is that the book did eventually make it too clear, in my opinion, that there was some sort of thing that was causing this mass hysteria. Some sort of, I'm picturing Cthulhu-esque situation where his elder gods or something were roaming around, and if you did look at them, murder-suicide. I really wish that the book hadn't made it so clear. Now, maybe to other people it doesn't seem clear, but there were several things that made it pretty damn clear to me that there was some sort of thing going on. For example, when she goes out with this dog named Victor, and Victor probably sees something, at which point Victor audibly kills himself, including snapping of bones and eventually going quiet. And it's like, maybe she misheard and misinterpreted all of that, and then she just left Victor tied there to die as she left him. But it felt very clear to me that the book was saying no. And there's also the point where everyone in the house kills each other and themselves. Now, you could potentially make the argument that they were just so divided that they just got into a fight and the fight escalated and they killed each other. And the dogs. But that does not seem at all even kind of likely to me. I wish it had been a lot more ambiguous whether there was actually something out there or not. Something else I wish they had done is that I wish that the characters were a little bit more. I wish they were better characterized. Mallory spends a lot of time in a house with a bunch of people, and we don't really ever get to know them. I couldn't even really keep them straight in my head. I remembered Tom, because Mallory kind of had a crush on Tom, and so she cared the most about like where Tom was and what he was doing. But even he didn't really have a strong personality. He was more adventurous than some of the others, but like that's about it. The other ones have like, there's another girl and she has the personality trait of is the other girl, and then there's a couple of guys who I really can't tell apart, but one trains the dogs, and it's just In a story like this, the characters really should have been pulling me in so that when they all die horribly, I cared. Because they did die horribly, and I didn't care at all. So overall, this story was really suspenseful and really had me intrigued by it. I listened to the audiobook version and I listened to it while I was at work, and I can always tell if I've got a really good book on my hands that I'm enjoying because my workday goes really fast. I almost forget that I'm at work because I'm enjoying listening to my book. And that was happening with the Bird Box for the most part. So I will say that it was a pretty enticing thriller that did keep me engaged. But there were several moments where inaccuracies, like real-life inaccuracies, pulled me out of the book and either made me face-palm or laugh or something. Several of the biggest ones came from the dogs that they had. Now, for a long time, they don't know for sure whether these elder gods, I'm going to call them elder gods because that's what they seem like, can affect animals. And eventually we find out they do. But before that, they still have this dog. They start out with one dog. His name is Victor, and he's a border collie. And immediately I was like, where does Victor poop? How does he poop? Do they take him out to poop? Does he just poop in the house? What is the poop situation and pee situation with Victor? And at first I was like, well, maybe the elder gods don't affect animals, and so they just let Victor out. He does his business and he comes back. But I don't think that's what happened. I just don't think that Victor poops. Then they get more dogs. They get like 3 huskies, which is ridiculous, because where are they pooping? And a really big factor is that you have got a border collie and huskies. These are some of the most high energy, intelligent breeds of dogs out there. They need to be engaged and they need to be getting a lot of exercise, or they are going to destroy your home while you watch in horror. They're going to get into the food, they're going to get into your bucket of human feces that you have to take out every day. They're going to tear apart every piece of furniture that you have. How are these dogs surviving in this house? And they're all well behaved and quiet, and they never even really come up unless we need the dogs to do something helpful. And I was like, no, 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 no. Dog people all over the world are going, no. And the author could have easily solved this by doing a little research and using breeds of dogs that were like not as intense as huskies and border collies, but this author did not. I think they just picked pretty dogs that they like, and that is not a good situation for anyone in this house. At one point, our main character is blindfolded in a canoe with her 2 children, and she is trying to paddle down a river to get to safety. Now, I am not a canoe paddling expert. We own a canoe, my husband and I have paddled it, we haven't taken it down anything like big, but I can tell you with pretty high confidence that if I was blindfolded, I would be constantly running that canoe into the bank. Constantly. She bumps into a few things, but she, for the most part, doesn't have any trouble, and she just rows on for days and days, and I'm like, I really don't think so, especially as she has no canoeing experience at all. And the last thing that took me out is during the scene where she has her baby, there's another lady in the house who's also conveniently having her baby at the exact same time, and that is also when the monster attacks, and also when this guy who they banished from their house reappears. And you don't really know what happens. The guy could have done it, or it was a monster that made her do it, but the other woman kills herself. And the guy claims, because our heroine has covered her eyes at this point, the bad guy claims that the other woman is hanging out of a window by the umbilical cord, which is still inside of her body. It's not described how she's hanging. he keeps repeating it over and over again, so we don't know for sure if this is actually true or if he's just making this up. But if it's true, I don't think it's possible. I don't think an umbilical cord would support the weight of an adult. The fact that it kept being repeated and all of that stuff, it just really took me out of the story because I was trying to figure out if that was possible. I'm just trying to figure out the logistics, and that's not how I'm supposed to feel in this moment. Also, the characters usually just sort of tend to handily have stockpiled food. Now, the need to go get food does come up later, but it also seems awfully convenient that everybody just was like, yeah, we're stockpiling up food. And the last thing that I kind of just wrote down, because I was kind of just writing in order, is that at first I was like, where are my blind people at? Because they should be really good in this situation. And I was like, okay, well, the blind people should just be ruling the world at this point. And then at the very end, we do get some blind people. The main character ends up, the place that she goes is a school for the blind, which has no windows. I forgot to research whether schools for the blind have windows. I feel like they would. The only thing that did disappoint me is that many of those people blinded themselves to prevent themselves seeing the Elder God, and we don't ever really meet someone who was blind before the disaster happened, which made me a little bit sad. Little known fact about me, one of my favorite people growing up was my aunt who was blind. Retinitis pigmentosa runs in my family. She unfortunately died of leukemia when I was still fairly young, but she is still one of my heroes. She was also a rider. She loved to ride horses, and she's just one of my favorite people. And she would have been so good in this disaster that all I can think about is how well she navigated her world. There's monsters, but they can't affect me, so I'm gonna help people and I'm gonna figure this out, and I can get around better than anyone else because I'm used to it and I've worked at it. She used to live in Chicago. She used to take the L train places. This woman could not be stopped. So that's why I was a little disappointed that we didn't see any people who were blind before the disaster happened. There you go, those were my thoughts on Bird Box. Have you read it? I hope so, because otherwise you just heard a whole bunch of spoilers. Do you have any thoughts on it? Comment below and let me know what they are. Do you have any other thrillers that you can recommend that might be similar to Bird Box? Remember, everyone, that I post new videos here Mondays and Fridays. All the links to my social media are in the doobly-doo for ease of clicking. And remember, if you liked what you saw here today but you really wish it was higher quality, you don't need to go blind. You can, however, support me over on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. All of the support I get from Patreon goes towards getting me better equipment. I'll be saving up for a while. And I will see all of you guys again next time with whatever it is I happen to be doing next time. Bye! What's up, everybody? It is shout out time. Time to shout out to my very first patron, Kim. And if you want to be cool like Kim, become a patron over on Patreon.